Hello, wonderful kindergarten students. Today we are working in social studies on Unit 3, My Community and Its History, Lesson 10, Personal Timeline Portfolio. My name is Mrs. C, and today I'll help you complete your portfolio correctly so you can turn it into your teacher for an amazing grade. Let's look at your lesson to see where we should begin. So this portfolio is two parts. You can see right here I'm on lesson 10 and I'm on portfolio 1. This is going to be turned in during part 2, but there are worksheets from 1 and 2 that we need to complete. So let's begin here. Here is the objective. In this portfolio, you will make a timeline of your life. Then you will use order words to show a life event. This is what we want to do for this portfolio assignment. Here are some keywords to help us understand. Event, something that happens. Future, a time that has not come yet. And timeline, a tool for organizing events in time order. On this next page, there is an example from Allie. Allie makes a timeline. So you're going to read the story with your caretaker or learning coach, and then you're going to answer this question down here. Why did Allie make a timeline? Then you're going to think about yourself. How can you tell your story? You can tell your story too. You can make a timeline. In this portfolio, you will use what you know about timelines to tell your story. You will make a timeline about your life, and you will make a timeline of something you did. So two different parts. Right here, this is the first worksheet that we're going to complete. This is a concept web to help you with your planning for your timeline. So here are some things we can think about. What will you show on your timeline? Draw or write your ideas in the My Life concept web and think about events in your life and also maybe what you want to do in the future. So if you click right here, it's going to take you to a worksheet that looks just like this. Now, if you don't have a printer and you can't print this, that's okay. You can make a concept web just on a blank sheet of paper. That will be perfectly fine. You just want to make sure that you've got this middle section with the title, Important Times in My Life, and then these 5 squares or boxes around it where you're going to write just a short sentence each about things that happened in your life. So let's go ahead and look at my example. I printed this out and I made it based on my life. Now, I didn't include things all the way up to being an adult. I just pretended that I was going into kindergarten as well, and so I only included events that happened when I was very young. The very first thing we can probably all start with, of course, is I was born. I added a little extra detail. I said I was born in Florida. I live in Florida. I was born in Florida. If you were born somewhere else, that might be really fun to include. But if you don't want to, if you just want to write I was born, that's enough. That's a really important event. Next, I turned 1 year old. I included that because I knew I had a picture of myself from my first birthday party that I could include in my timeline. Next, my dad joined the Army. That was really important in my life. I was very small and I remember it well, so I included that. My brother was born, also super important and very exciting. I was very happy to have a baby brother. And then I went to school. And I actually think the picture I have for this one is when I was in preschool, not even kindergarten yet. So I pretended that I was younger like you, and I filled out some really important events that happened just from the time I was born all the way until I went to school. So this is all you need, short, simple, brief sentences. You don't have to write anything really lengthy. You don't have to include any pictures in this part. All right, let's go back to our lesson and see what we're going to do next. So remember, this worksheet is going to get turned into your teacher. Make sure that you complete this worksheet. If you need it, I have it linked in the description below this video as well. Okay, so we've done our concept web. If you want another example, there's one right here. You can look at an example from your lesson as well. All right, so you will fill out worksheets. We just did one, right? You will send them to your teacher. Talk to your learning coach about what you will turn in. All right, so here's the rubric. We are going to look at this, but we're going to look at this when we finish all of our worksheets. So I'm not going to click on it right now, but this is a rubric that you can check just to make sure you're on the right track and completing everything the way you need to. Okay, here's another objective. In this portfolio section, you will make a timeline of your life. So we're going to get started on a second part. That concept web is going to help us plan this timeline. Here are our keywords: future, a time that has not come yet; now, this moment in time; past, any time before now; and timeline, a tool for putting events in time order. All right, so Rena saw Allie's timeline and she wants to make one too. She knows her past, she knows what she does now, and she can think about the future. What happens next? You can watch this flipbook and you can see how Rena made her timeline. All right, so here's her timeline. It's adorable. She also started with I was born, so she was 0 years old. When she was 2 years old, her brother was born. She remembers going to the beach when she was 3. She had a birthday party when she was 4 years old. And in the future, if you want to include the future, you can. She wants to be a dancer. So look at these events. They're all in order, right? Youngest to oldest. A timeline goes in time order. So these events were important to Rena, and she put them on her timeline in the order that they happened. Now you're going to make your own timeline. All right, you may need to work on your own. This is the skill called work independently. You can ask others for help. You will need to check the steps of your work, and this is a skill called managing projects. Working independently and managing projects are both important 21st century skills. If you scroll down, you're going to see another area you can click right here. This will bring up the next worksheet that you're going to complete, which is going to be your timeline. So once you have that up, you're going to follow these steps. Think about your life, talk to family, look at pictures, title your timeline, write dates for past, now, and future, and add pictures or drawings. So right down here is an example you can see. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the worksheet. This is the blank one that you'll print out. Remember, if you can't print it, that's okay. You can make a little chart like this on a blank sheet of paper, and that's perfectly fine. If you do need to print this and you don't see it in your lesson for any weird reason, I do have it attached in the description below this video as well. So here's what I did for my timeline. I knew what my events were because I already had my concept web. I was using this as my plan, right? I found pictures that went with each of those events, and then I printed them out. I made them really tiny. You can see I've already cut some, and I printed them out on a piece of paper. Now, cutting and gluing is really important in kindergarten too. That is something that we want to make sure we're practicing independently. So I wanted to show you that this is what I did, and I want you guys to do this too. You can print out a picture and then you can cut it out. Now, if you don't have a printer and you can't print and cut, that's okay. You can draw pictures instead if you need to. But this is another option. You can practice your cutting and gluing skills by printing all of the pictures that you found of yourself. There's me when I went to school, preschool, and you can cut them out with scissors. So here's my timeline so far. I'm going to go ahead and glue my last picture on because that was my last part. I am using a glue stick. I think they're a lot less messy than school glue, that drippy, gooey kind. So I'm using a glue stick. This is really good and important for you to practice independently by yourself if you can. A parent or a caretaker can help, of course, but the more you do on your own, the better the practice is. So here's my worksheet. I did print mine out. I put my name and the date at the top. Remember, you can make something just like this if you don't have a printer. That's okay. So here's the date, September 1987. I was born in Florida. There I am as a little baby. Exactly 1 year later, September 1988, I turned 1 year old. There I am with my little birthday hat on. August 1990, my dad joined the Army. It's kind of hard to see. The picture's printed out pretty dark, but there's my dad and I when I was visiting him one time when he was in the Army. And then January 1991, my brother was born. There's a picture. It came out dark too, but that's me holding my baby brother. And August 1991, I went to school. So if you look at my dates there, whew, so much longer ago than yours are going to be, but you can see they go in order. 1987, 1988, 1990, 1991, and then later in 1991 as well. So they are in time order. Remember, if you want to include something from the future, you can as well. Will you have a picture of it to add? No, the future hasn't happened yet, but you can draw a picture. You can draw a picture for any of these. You don't have to print any pictures or have any real pictures at all. You can draw a picture for all of your timeline events, and that is perfectly fine too. All right, so let's go back to our lesson. You've made your timeline now. I think we're going to move on from part 1 to part 2. Yep, so this is part 1. We're all done here. If you want to see another example, you can click right here, and there will be another example for you. Let's go to part 2. We've got one more worksheet to do. I suggest doing this over 2 days. So if you've already done the first 2 worksheets, I suggest doing this one the next day so it's not too much. Okay, we have a new objective. In this portfolio section, you will draw a timeline to show a sequence of events in your life. So we're not doing your full life or your full timeline this time. We're just doing a sequence of events for something that happened. Here are the key words. An event is something that happens. A sequence is a list of actions or events in order. A timeline is a tool for organizing events in time order. All right, so here is an example, planting a garden timeline. Rena and Ali wanted to plant a garden. They used a timeline. It helped them plan. They made a list of steps and they put them in a sequence. Look at their timeline. You can look with your learning coach right here and then answer the question. Now think of an event in your own life and make a timeline. Remember, not of your whole life this time, just of something that happened. Here's the flow chart that you're going to print out. Before we look at that, let's look at what we need to do. Number 1, think about something you did. Number 2, put the steps in sequence. Then make your timeline, title your timeline, add dates, and add pictures or drawings. So here's the flow chart example that you can see, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's blank when you click on it right here. Here's your flow chart. So for this one, it's just going to be an event that happens in your life. It's not going to be your whole life. It's not going to be over years and years and years. It's just going to be something that happened. They talked about planting a garden. So for my example, I talked about getting a new kitten. I've got my name at the top, I've got my date, and I begin with a short sentence. I got a new kitten. I have 4 cats. I love them. So this was when I got my first one. What happened next? I named her. I named her Freya. So there's another short sentence, just 4 words. After that, I bought her a cat tent that she likes to climb in and sleep in and play in. And I watched her grow bigger. So these things happened in order. I got the kitten, I named her, I bought her a toy, and I watched her grow bigger. Now on this one, I didn't print out any pictures because I wanted to make sure that I was showing different types of examples. So for this one, I'm just going to draw a picture of a kitten right here on my worksheet. All right, so here's my first picture of when she's really, really tiny. Oh, you can barely see it. It's a very light brown, but there she is. Underneath this, when I named her Freya, I could draw another picture of her, maybe laying down instead of sitting up. Right here, I bought her a cat tent. I can draw a tent super quick. Do, 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 do. Hers is actually not green, but that's okay. It's got a little blanket in the bottom. It's got a little ball that hangs from the top. So here's her little cat tent. And then at the bottom, I watched her grow bigger. So if this is the size she is in this one, I would want to make sure at the bottom, I drew a picture of her being even bigger, right? So for this one, you're welcome to add photos or you're welcome to draw pictures. Either way is fine. All right, let's go back to your lesson and see. Here's another example. Remember, if you want to look at another example. Remember, use those 21st century skills. Make sure you work independently on this a bit and make sure you manage those projects by following the steps and making sure that you know what you need to do first, what you need to do next, what you need to do last. All right, it's very good to start practicing that now. All right, so in this portfolio, you made two timelines. You made a timeline of your life and you made a timeline of one event. You did some on your own and you got help too. That's perfectly fine. Talk with your learning coach about how you could use timelines. Here's your sentence starter. I can use timelines to. What do you think? What could you do with them? All right, so think about your portfolio project and look at your timelines. Is there anything else extra that you think you should add? Is there anything that you think you should do differently? If there is, you can make those changes now before you turn it in. If you're good to go, get ready to turn in your portfolio. Make sure you have each part. So let's look at those worksheets again. You're going to have your concept web, right? Important times in my life. That's your planning sheet. You're going to have your timeline with pictures, and you're going to have your flow chart of your event with some pictures as well. Let's look at our rubric to make sure we did everything in this excellent category. We want an excellent, amazing grade. The timeline title is clearly stated. Lucky for us, there were titles on all of those worksheets. The timeline shows at least three events in the person's life in sequential or time order. We had even more than three events on all of our timelines, so I know we did an amazing and fantastic job. The timeline includes at least three details, such as names and dates. We had dates all over our timeline. We had names when we talked about ourselves. And if it's not someone's first name, that's okay. We talked about our brothers or our sisters or moms or our dads. That's fine too. And the timeline shows a strong understanding of how timelines work. So the way you can show that is really easy. It's just making sure that you've got those events in order, that everything starts at the beginning and goes to the end with your event, and then also, of course, with your life as well. Everything goes in time or sequential order. That will show that you understand that very well. All right, let's go back to your lesson. I think you are done. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's that rubric if you want to click on it and see that for yourself as well. Once you've got that, just go to the next page. That will be your Dropbox. You will upload all three of these worksheets and turn them into your teacher for a grade. I know that if you followed along with this video and you've talked about your life in time order, then you are going to get an excellent, excellent grade. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.